All right,
I will
well,
let you know.
let's go ahead and kick it off. We can once again go in alphabetical order like we did last time, and I'd love to hear everybody's one thing, if you did bring it, what, like the first thing that sticks out that you learned doing this last weekend. Josh changed his
Just
name
changed
to
his
muck up the
name.
order. Bad CC looks like you're first.
Smart.
No, never mind. All right, Josh, what you got for it?
Ah. Um,
Tricky.
so kind of what we've done a couple of game jams in a row is kind of experiments on player motivation. And we haven't really considered that as much for like any of the game jams really. It's kind of just like, hey, players will want to go to the top of the hill and they kind of do or don't. But I found with this game, you kind of give players two teams and guns and they just know exactly what to do. There was no player
Just like in real
motivation
life.
needed.
That's actually true. Yeah, that's a good point.
So it was just very interesting seeing how different it was between previous games. We've got to like incentivize them to go to the top of the hill to make it look cool. But with this, there wasn't any of that, and it was mainly just gameplay, which was kind of something to learn.
Right on. Thank you, Josh. Mr. Bad CC,
So what's the question? What are we exactly covering?
is there something specific that you learned yesterday?
Um,
No, that's epic.
that's fine.
If not, that's okay. We can circle back to you. I just thought it'd be good to see the conversation by getting a bunch of these topics out there, and then we can debate and deliberate.
Yeah, I mean, learn about. I definitely have a comment about.
Yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we discussed this a little bit post mortem, but like when we started initially with the idea, like there's a lot to do, and we divided into tasks. But I found that after the initial task was completed, there lacked structure to enable me to figure out what the best thing to work on next was. When we definitely, there definitely were things like we definitely needed more weapons and things like that, and I just wasn't aware of like who was doing what. Yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, maybe, sorry about that. Learning is the wrong prompt. Just like an immediate thought that you have had from this.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Alex. That's good.
Cool. So the coordination between people working terrain and environment is like astounding. That was like really cool to see how quickly the map came together and how good it was so quickly. Like it's like a really, really solid map in 12 minutes. And the coordination between scripters, especially because there's that disconnect if you can't see what other scripters are writing while they're writing it necessarily. And that's so important for how like code comes together and interfaces with each other. But like I think that's one of the bigger like problems to solve with a really big group task. And also there's a lot of like I guess like something that I learned. I kept clicking like the model by accident when I was trying to move apart and like shifting the whole base to the left. So I learned how not to do that. That's like my tiny learning. But that was God.
Oh yeah. Andrea is top dog, by the way. If anybody ever is unsure who top dog is, it's Andrea.
Okay.
So, Andrew, what we're doing is we're going around everybody saying one immediate thought that you have, like a point of reflection about yesterday. And we're going in order, and you just hopped in, so why don't you go ahead for us?
Hi, guys. Sorry I'm late. My biggest learning was that I spent 20 minutes trying to get a turret from one of my old games to work unsuccessfly. And
Wait,
then
was it from Two Player Gun Factory?
It was.
The
And it's
Legends beginning.
like a 7-year-old game. And then I tried inserting a free model turret, and it worked instantly. So I think there's a lesson to be learned there.
That's good stuff.
Don't import from old projects in the middle of a live jam. And I don't know. I feel like we probably could have done more preparation, like have more scripts and assets that are weapon related. But
Definitely.
yeah, I don't know.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Much appreciated. Davey.
Hi. So I started really strong into this jam because I'm like, you know what? I am gonna go for gold and make a like a custom class builder. Like I'm like everything. I was kind of the last jam we did was I don't want to take up too much time, but like the last jam we did, everything was pretty ramshackle thrown together, which obviously it's an hour-long jam. But I was kind of disappointed because I wanted to actually code something kind of complicated, like as a speed programming exercise. So I was really looking forward to that with this one, which is why I tried to make the custom like loadout selector. And I was very proud of how it came out. Like the thing came together clean and it worked really well. But then there was no content for it, so it basically fizzled, and I was very disappointed about that because I was hoping to have sort of like a moment of triumph, like with the round based thing in the princess game last time. I was hoping to have a repeat of that, and then nobody made any weapons. So like to the point where I remember Luke got confused about how it worked just because there was no content in it.
Luke had to actually enlighten me like 10 minutes after he figured out how it worked.
Yeah, so like you were supposed to pick one thing in each row, but each row had like one object, so it didn't make any sense that was how it worked. And yeah, so I think, well, I don't know if I should go so far as to make a suggestion, but I think there needs to be a bit more centralization or direction or structure or leadership. And it doesn't necessarily have to come from any person in particular, but just, I mean, this is kind of echoing what Alex said, that people weren't sure what was being done by who and what needed to be done, and no one was really keeping track of those things.
Yeah.
And that made my contribution, which I poured my heart into, feel less than valuable in the end product.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, David. I do want to talk about that because I think it was a really interesting phenomenon that is like you said, I think that happening can point us to a lot of very strong solutions. And there are a few ideas that I have on that, and I want to run by you all later, but let's keep going. Dirty Dan, what you got?
All right, so
Deus Ex
biggest
Dan.
thing I learned was to
Deus Ex
probably not to try to do anything directly before the game jam, because I kind of almost burned the house down making a pizza and was like 20 minutes late.
Dude, I laughed so hard when David said, instead of removing the smoke, we're removing the detectors. Dan, make sure you put those back when you're done.
But other than that, I probably should have been more engaging while in the game jam. Like, I mean, this was my first time. I wasn't really sure how everything was going. Like, everyone seemed to be like on their own task. I didn't really want to bother anyone, but I probably should have mentioned the endorsed helicopters sooner. But yeah, it did build up suspense though in the end. Like, just, hey guys, I'm ready to solve all your problems.
There were 4 minutes. If you watch the YouTube video, it's hilarious. I died laughing when I saw it again. I was just, Dan comes in. I didn't even know that you were in the game jam, Dan. Literally, like, your voice came on and I was like, who is this? And then I realized that it was you. And you're like, I'm going to drop in the endorsed model helicopters. And we just spent 55 out of the 60 minutes trying to fix these broken helicopters. Dude, it was amazing.
Yeah, time that could have been spent filling out the loadout system.
We live and we learn. All right, thank you, Dan. I think mine is definitely echoing David, that synthesis of any kind is very difficult to effectively perform here. It seems to be easier on the design front because you can see what's happening. I think Andrea said this. Like, synthesized programming tasks are very difficult because the visual progress is not there, and so you have to communicate. And especially yesterday when there's 15 people in the call, it's just not effective. You can't really talk. And so maybe we use the breakout rooms more. Maybe we have an assigned PM. I don't know. I think maybe we take 15 minutes pre-jam to plan out what's going to happen. There's a lot of different ideas, and I want to riff on those a little bit later, but we'll pass it on to Josh. What you got?
Oh. My biggest thought was similar to Alex's, which was that, so I worked on it mostly environment, and we got a lot done really fast. We had the map mostly done at 12 minutes. And then after that, it felt a little unguided. I wasn't sure where to contribute, and I wasn't sure, what to do. So like the first 15 minutes of the jam was extremely successful, like very productive, but then after that point, it felt unguided.
Certainly. Thank you, Josh. Big Luke. Drop some knowledge on me, baby.
I thought this was probably our most successful yet. I mean, from what I've played, I thought it was super fun. We got so much done. And I feel like we've almost transitioned into this point where we need to actually be concerned about how the game actually plays. Because, like, the map was great, the weapons were great, but, like, I felt like things were, like, overpowered. And it's great that that's our next problem that I feel like we need to tackle. But, like, the weapons, like, it was very chaotic and it was fun. Like, that was wild and fun. But that was not, like, the same vibe that I remember in Heli Wars. And so it'd be nice if we had any time to like focus or put some time to contribute to think about that.
That's brilliant. Josh and I were talking about almost exactly what you just said yesterday, like word for word. So I'm excited to touch on that too. Thank you, Luke. And what's up?
So I think all of your points are really great about scripting and trying to like make everything a little bit more coordinated. But the only thought that I generally have is like just a personal thing that I learned during the game jam, which was like so freaking simple. Like you have to parent something if you clone it, if you want it to actually work. So that was cool. That's what I learned. But yeah, that's it.
So I think, are you referring to the regen script?
Yes, I am.
Are you talking about the edit that I made that parents the clone to replicated storage?
Yeah.
That's actually not what fixed it. Alex is the one that
What,
fixed it.
really?
It was like an actual, it was like an unfortunate like syntax blunder where you said, it said new folder clone and then new folder dot parent equals workspace. So instead of assigning the clone to something and then parenting the clone, it was actually parenting the original folder. So it would work once, but then the second time it wouldn't work.
Oh, okay, cool.
But good thoughts. Just I hope to provide some clarity there, yeah. But hey, when things are moving fast, they're moving fast.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anne. Ashley, what's up?
You're welcome.
Honestly, for me personally, I didn't enjoy this game jam nearly as much as the last one because it went, that 12-minute map went from we have nothing to okay, there's an entire map now. I don't have time to think about design anymore because everyone's already painting rocks down. Okay, let's put in a giant hill here, here, and those are already covered in trees now. Okay, I'm just gonna go do sound design and throw a couple barrels around. It felt very unguided, and I really disliked that. That there was no. It was just go, go, go. There was no like, hey, let's talk about the design a little bit, or let's talk maybe this map, having a straight through is terrible for performance and not performance. Well, maybe, but for competitive games, you shouldn't be able to directly just shoot your turret at the enemy spawn from across the map. Maybe stuff like that. Like there was no slow water. There was no thought put into the map or anything like that. And then because of the lack of communication, no one started trying to work on loadouts and get a little bit of balance going on there, that sort of thing. Those just kind of continued throughout and made it very hard for me to personally enjoy that experience.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry there was a bummer of a time. I think that, there's definitely some rough moments. Although I am excited that, I think this is probably the most learning jam yet. Like, there's going to be the most takeaways from this one out of all of them. So first, thanks everybody for sharing that. I appreciate this. Some great some launching points. I think the first thing that I want to talk about is the goal of the jams. Because I was thinking about this, and it's like, this is what Luke said, right? Like, we've gotten pretty good at start to finish, but now I think we're realizing, like, we have to play these games after they're done. And so let's make them fun to play. And the original goal, like, before we knew how any of this was going to go down, was just get a bunch of people in a Discord call and drop something in a game and laugh about it. And that's fun while it's happening, but then as soon as it's over, and you're like, oh, this is a dumb game. There's not a lot put into balancing or actual map design. And so there's almost like this shift that's happening where instead of just doing the thing and laughing and it's hilarious and ridiculous, maybe we actually want to start pushing the bar as in terms of quality. Like, can we actually make something good in an hour? And there's a couple different questions that like can wrap up into this. Should it be more than 1 hour? Should there be a distinct 15-minute planning period or something like that before we actually start the development window? Should there be an appointed synthesizer or PM, beautiful cat, that is like the go-to, like their whole job is just sit there and wait for somebody to say, Jackson, what do I do? And then I say, do this, or you know, whoever it is tells you what to do next. Like your whole job is just to clock, you know, take pulses and see where everybody's at. I know there's so many ideas, and there's not really a super structured conversation that needs to happen here, but I'd love to loft all of those up and open the floor for anybody to jump in with some thoughts.
If I can go first.
Go ahead, Ashley.
I think
David next.
The project manager sort of deal is only necessary for teams over like 8 people. If we kind of, because that's where that communication barrier starts becoming a huge fucking problem. Because Fish, I think we had like 9 people in the Discord call, but everyone always had something to work on. And if there wasn't something to work on, they were just like, cool, I'm done, bye, and would just go. So there was never like a communication backup where it's like, hey, this programming task is done 10 minutes in, and then everyone's like 50 minutes later like, hey, what happened to that programming task? That was done, you know, the entire jam ago, and now we have no content on like the weapon side or anything like that. So I think that a project manager sort of deal would only be necessary for larger teams.
Mm-hmm.
So my suggestion would be to make the team smaller, generally speaking, because then you can get more improvement in a quicker time.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And David, before we jump in there, there's another thing that we had discussed, which is specifically picking a game idea that is conducive to a lot of people on a team. And something that Jill brought up several weeks ago was robot fighting, where let's say there's 20 developers that want to jam this weekend. We can all be on the same team. It just becomes very clear, like every scripter is going to partner with a builder and make a robot together, and that's it. And then, you know, all of your robots, you'll have 10 different robots that you can fight against each other. So like anything like this that is hyper modular, and we know going into it that we can take off a modular component each, is another idea of how to remedy this. But David, what you got, my man?
I think that Ashley's solution is totally valid, but it's also a question of preference, I think, because I thought that the big team was really fascinating. And I think that for me personally, and I hold nothing against anyone who would disagree with this opinion, doing that more sounds really fun, but it definitely needs centralized leadership. Like battle is no time for democracy. And when the stakes are high, the time frame is small, and the team is large, we need some shut up and do your job, I think. And I don't want to be that person, never, but I think that's something that's needed if we want to do that again, which I do.
I love that, David. Thank you.
That is my thought.
I think that provides good opportunities as well for people who want to practice that sort of skill set. You know, like right now, it's a lot of individual contribution that we're practicing, but that's a good point if somebody wants to be able to step into that role and see what it's like.
I wonder if it would be helpful to like have a general Trello board or something. Like you can just say like what you worked on or whatever, but it would be neat to have like a Trello board where people just like plop in the thing that they worked on, and if it's like complete and in the game, and I don't know, I feel like that might help.
Or even something with like, I don't know if there's a way to hack Team Create by like showing someone's status or like their task under
We can
their
make
like.
a plugin.
We could do
that we all
that.
have.
Yeah. So like
That
Team
has
Creates would
the
have the
status of
statuses.
each
Might
team
be able
member.
to say like, okay, is this person working on Yellow Bait? Could even have
Yeah.
like what part they have selected under it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good idea.
Whoa.
Something.
Yeah, and I think Anne and Andrea, I think both of these ideas are super valuable, but they only play if it's someone's job to be looking at that. Like, I don't think anyone else is going to want to
I
do
agree with that.
Trello maintenance. Like, it may be over engineering. I mean, it's worth running an experiment like everything that we're doing here, but
Yeah.
I'm fascinated. I think that a lot of solutions cascade out of a little bit of pre-planning and having a hyper-modular game that is conducive to distributed task completion, like the robot thing. That just seems like such a good way. Or like, I submitted Brick Battle, and my vision was that everyone can develop a weapon from scratch. Anything like this where it's super compartmentalized. What you got, David?
I think Heli Wars was a good candidate for that, because if people like, I I know Alex and Josh and some other people sort of tangentially mentioned, "Oh, I did finish the thing and then I didn't know what to do." And I'm just thinking about how when we started, we did the Project Atlas, and the always on programming task was explicitly stated, make weapons. So, like, I'm like, okay, sure, Alex and Josh, I get it. That you did felt unguided, but isn't that what the always on programming task is for?
It's true.
Like,
Well,
And
so
I
guess
also
maybe
failed
we
on
didn't
that.
make that
I
clear
really,
enough.
I really want to add my voice to this because, like,
Please, yeah.
I would have loved to contribute to customizing the loadouts. I just it didn't compute in my head that was an option, and so like I think that you could have been a little bit more assertive there, being like, you know,
Yeah.
I need help with the loadouts. Someone help me with the loadouts, and really like don't be afraid to bug people.
Yeah, I was in like go mode because like the second I finished the loadout system, I was like, hey, can I have the floor? Here's how it works. We have these 5 categories. You can put weapons in there, and you get one from each. And then I jumped right into start making gadgets for the categories because I wanted to fill them out, and I figured that people would kind of follow through on that. And then I muted to focus, so I didn't hear anybody not talking about the weapons they were making.
Yes.
So,
I think also after we created that document, I didn't know where to find it. So if it could have been like posted somewhere to like look at.
That's so
Yeah,
funny.
actually, that's a really easy takeaway because Jackson, you could just have your screen shared without the.
Yeah, totally.
Or maybe put the atlas in the actual team crate.
yeah, like just have a readme module in the
100%.
workspace.
Yeah,
No,
that's
service
definitely
crate.
a failure on my end. I think the thought process was like, this is not. Originally, when we conceptualized this, we had like 7 people, and we were like, "Oh, it would be helpful to have this with 7 people because 7 is so many." And then here we have 15, and we realized it doesn't quite serve. But the idea was like, it doesn't have much value. At least we thought it doesn't have a ton of value as an always available list. Really, the only value is in like having the conversations beforehand to drive alignment, and that people will just like know and not need to return back. That's definitely an error on my part, and I'm interested in exploring. And I like Trello. At least like if we combine it with a 15-minute period before the jam where we just
15-minute pre-production. Let's go.
Something like that where you just drop dozens and
I
dozens of tasks.
agree.
And then
If there's no pre-planning stage, I think Trello will take up too much time. But
Yes,
if we make a Trello and then exhaust it through the process of like we set up and then we knock down. If we have that setup time, I think that would actually be a very good tool for that process.
I was also before this thinking that a pre-planning time would be especially helpful for the scripters and thinking like, okay, the terrain and the map came together really quickly in like 15 minutes. Maybe that time can be spent for the scripters to like coordinate, but then Ashley's feedback about how there were certain fallbacks with the map, like no real thought about you can kill the other team by your own like base. I think that leads to maybe having the equivalent pre-planning time for the map as well.
In fairness, the original Heli Wars did have such a poorly designed map.
So it's true to the story, I guess.
Yeah. So there's a separate thread that's kind of spinning off that I do want to address because I think we made some good ground on the pre-planning and the organization. It is the quality of the games themselves. And one of the things that's been sort of like in oscillation is the level of absurdity of these games. And the pro of having a high level of absurdity is that it's fun as hell. Like it's just hilarious when you're in the team crate and you run it play solo and then your whole body starts dismembering like out of nowhere. So, stuff like that is really funny. But then there's really no game after that. Like it's like a funny TikTok, but it's not like a whole YouTube video. You know what I mean? And so,
I don't like that analogy, but I agree.
So the turret in this one, I think, was a good example of that in that, like, it's hilarious, but its level of absurdity is so high that everything else doesn't really matter in the game at that point. And we had similar things like this before in some of our previous jams, but I think it lends itself to starting the conversation about, like, is there a shift that we want to do, focus a little bit more on quality, and what does that look like? Is that already solved by just adding pre-planning, or do we let this continue to build in our minds as we jam, or do we want to run an experiment this coming weekend on that specifically? David, what you got?
I would just like to caution against planning, like, well, you know what they say in programming. You gotta test often and iterate in the smallest possible units, right? I feel like changing too much from this jam to the next one might muddy our control variables, you know?
Good point. Yeah.
So let's say that we decide to change things A, B, and C from this jam to that jam. A and B are great, but they don't feel great when C is there. And if we had just done A, then B, then C, we would have been able to know that C was the problem, and we could have kept A and B. So I just want to avoid that eventuality.
Yeah.
And it's weekly, so that's pretty rapid time frame, you know.
Way to go, everybody. Any other
There's
thoughts?
also a caution that maybe, like, yes, we can make adjustments to try and improve the quality of the output, but there's a risk that that will come at a compromise to the original goal of just having
A
a
blast.
zero stakes
Mhm.
fun time.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Right.
That's true. That's why I
Yeah.
wanted to see what the thoughts are.
That's
here.
another problem of preference, because some people really enjoy and thrive in high stakes environments, and others would prefer to be extremely casual, right?
Mhm. Maybe we establish a gradient of the level of casualness on our teams, and Team Green is always the most casual, and you can self-organize into another team if you want a more intense experience. Because I think that James and Adrian planned on self-organizing into like a not casual team to test how easy it is to work in another person's code base like this. And they overslept, but I think they were planning on doing that. And
They
so they're
slept because of late night activities, is what Adrian
I
said.
saw that. What are you doing? But yeah, I think that at least it seems like right now the vibe is we should have the experiment next weekend be a Trello board where we dump a bunch of tasks, maybe a 15-minute pre-planning window before the jam. Thoughts there?
I also think that, like, at least one thing that I noticed is the reason the game probably like crashed a bunch of clients and like was really overwhelming to play. Like, I could see lightning and turrets and guns all getting through pre-planning, but like when you add them to the game, it's like the power and the effectiveness of them like all together makes a big difference. So maybe it's like maybe you add like one thing at a time, or maybe it's your job to maybe make sure that like if you add the lightning, it does like the required amount of damage or something. Like, I think there should be some responsibility of whoever adds a feature to a game to make sure that it like is cohesive with the rest of the stuff. Because I think all those things independently could have been like planned and accepted and added and good. And I think that together with their powers, I think that's what like made it a lot.
When you combine the four elements in one person. Yeah, that's a super good point. And again, it's like there's just so little time that any synthesis is really hard to perform, especially the tuning. But I think that like, okay, so those are good points. Let's go over those. The lightning. I think the lightning is solved if there's a greater debounce when you spawn it. The turrets are probably solved if
Less range, maybe.
They go through terrain,
I
it
think-
seems.
the turrets.
Oh, they
maybe we strike the turrets then.
I think
Because
the
people
turret-
were just dying.
The turrets would work if they were explicitly an anti-spawn kill. Like if their effective range, either because of the map design or something hard coded in them, was like the effectiveness ends at the fence gate of my base. You know.
So I tried to edit the turrets. Let me give you some insight into how the turrets work.
Give us the journey.
They fire bullets, and the bullets each contain a script inside of them.
No.
And the script
Ow.
inside of the bullet, when the bullet hits something, the script says, "Is this anchored? Or is this unanchored? If it's unanchored, then break joints." And that's it.
That might be why clients were crashing.
And I tried. I only had 5 minutes.
Didn't they fire like 100 rounds per second or something? Oh my god!
So I tried to go in.
That's so good.
We learned.
clean it, but I had no way of figuring out the player who fired the bullet because the script was in the bullet.
Yeah, you know, we might have complained that they were destroying characters at distance or destroying terrain at distance, but the real thing that they were destroying was everyone's VRAM.
So I just joined the game. By the way, did we run ads or something on it?
Yeah,
Joe
Joe
ran
ran
ads,
ads on the last two.
'Cause I joined-
PlayStation, this one.
I joined, and I don't think the turrets are the problem because none of the turrets work anymore.
There's also like 30 people playing right now, which is
Yeah,
and none of the
There's some interesting
helicopters
moments in there.
are spawning either. So
So the regen buttons are unanchored, and no one has fixed them yet. I've said this. I've said it out loud like 9 times, and I've still never gone in studio to fix them.
I found the regen buttons. They're outside the base, and I'm clicking them. They're not doing anything.
It's because we changed the helicopters at the last minute, and they were only supposed to work for the old helicopters.
Deus Ex Dan.
Deus Ex Dan, baby. So we had a lot of very good, exciting moments, nonetheless. This is good. This is good.
It was a lot of fun. So.
It was okay. So I want to check in on this because I know there will be some good opinions on both sides. Can you give me a hand up if you do not want to do a big team like this again?
A hand is up, but you cannot see it.
Gotcha.
Just because I like stupid questions.
Andrew, I
And
couldn't
I've
hear you.
mostly stupid. So.
Did anybody else just hear Andrea? Oh my god.
Not really. Kind of cut out.
Couldn't hear a word,
Huh.
Andrea.
Oh, I just said, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I was just saying that yes, but it's because most of the questions are pretty simple, and I'm not going to ask.
I think for me, the big teams is what makes this the fun thing on the weekend to look forward to. Like, just because it's so wild and chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I wanted to take making the game really seriously, I would go and, like, get together a team and commit to a project for a longer term.
Mm-hmm.
The silly, wacky ridiculousness of trying to fit 20 people onto 1 hour long project, or 2 hour long, or 8 hour long, or however short period of time we decide to do this in the future. That is what makes it fun for me.
I
would love to try a smaller team at some point, but like I think game jams like that are a lot more investment and require a lot more energy, and need to be rarer. To
I
truly
like
appreciate.
having a variety. I think it's good to like do big teams and small teams just so that you can kind of like, I don't know, like I like the game jams because you're kind of throwing yourself into new environments and trying out new ideas, and like the point of it is like you're learning a lot for me. So I like getting all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Anne.
I was gonna say nearly the same thing. It's like I would love to do more teams. Like right now, this is really fun, and I had a blast last weekend. But like I will probably also feel burnout if I did this for like a month. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely.
But we'll see. Yeah.
The large teams are very exhausting for me personally, and the chaos kind of makes my head hurt. So it's a hard time for me when it's a large team like that and just so chaotic. And so I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna shut down now.
I think we almost
Well, Jackson-
started too fast. Like if we had just spent like the first 10 minutes a little bit more slowly, like having conversation, like all right guys, like what are we like? I feel like we just jumped into it, and I like the attitude of like don't say no, but like it was just like every random thought that came to our heads was just thrown down, and so maybe we should have a little bit more structure during the process.
Yeah. So I just a quick point on that, and then somebody else was trying to jump in there. I'll get you. But I watched back the video. This is like 100% Jackson. I was doing the Project Atlas on share screen, and I finished the last item, and whatever the last item is I can't remember. It's like shoot, I don't know. But we finished the last item, and I said, okay, everybody go. And that was it. That was the only direction that we had as a unit. So definitely big learnings to take home there. That's good. Thanks, Andrew. Was it Andrea that was?
Yeah, I was gonna say that like large teams can be more palatable to people who maybe deal with the like or don't prefer the chaoticness in a really big group chat by like leveraging the breakout rooms, which is I think what you suggested earlier. So people working on terrain, maybe like I know the sound people almost always like dip out and mute and go into like focus mode, and so I think a really big group could kind of work for everyone if people felt comfortable hopping in and out and maybe like labeling different rooms by the utility that they're providing. So like terrain instead of like team green. So it's really clear like, okay, I'm going to work on these different bases, something like that. And maybe that would have to be set up in a planning session. But
I like that idea the most because we still get the awesome fun of having like 20 people in a team create, but it's not communications hell. Like that seems like the best compromise in my opinion.
Wow. Matthew Dean, you've been hanging out down there. I'd love to hear your thoughts as another first-time jammer joining in on this particular weekend.
Yeah, so I didn't want to say too much because I'm new to this.
That's why you should say the most, Matthew.
I thought this was a blast. I love the chaos of throwing like 15 or 17 people into a game with almost no context and just making something cool. So I really enjoyed it, and I agree with others that going to a super structured approach to me wouldn't be as fun. Like, to me, this is just for fun. I do think it's very hard to coordinate across that many people, so splitting up the channels might make sense. But I think just maybe having like more direction at the start. So I think it was fine that this time we sort of did like, all right, Heli Wars, let's copy it, let's go. But for future, it would be cool if we like fleshed out an idea, and then tried that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like. Is anybody opposed to the Trello board 15-minute pre-production experiment this weekend?
I think it's a great idea.
Andrew, talk to me.
I think it's a good idea, but I feel like I have a little uneasiness towards it because what makes us so effective is that we're able to be autonomous in some cases, and move like almost minute to minute from task to task. So I assume some people might not be writing down tasks that they're working on because they're stuck, and that might ruin the whole system. But I definitely think we should try it out and see how it goes. But I just have a few. I guess I'm not sure how it works. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm interested to see, and I think like I do always have qualms about some of the experiments that we run, but that's why we run them as experiments. I think that there's what do you think? I like the use of the word autonomy there. If the point of the Trello board is really just to have a task bank, do you think that still preserves a lot of autonomy and that like it exists so that you can look at it when you're done and pick another thing off, so you're not being dictated?
I don't think having tasks specifically on the Trello board is going to be a good idea at all, because then it'll feel like you're being too constrained. Like specific, like we need 14 different guns. Here's each gun. Do these 7 elements to that. Like doing that level is just too much.
That's not what I thought.
I definitely
that's not what I thought the Trello was going to be. I was thinking more like vibes or general goals.
Yeah, like if it was like overarching mechanics on a board, then people can add their own and be like, this is what I'm planning to work on.
Right. Yeah.
And then other people can look at that and be like, oh, I kind of want to assist with that.
Yeah. What I was imagining is like absolute must-haves, like in one column, like the things that must get done for this to be considered like what we want. So for Heli Wars, that would have been guns and the helicopters and the bases, right? And then, so like that might help people prioritize themselves or find something. And then in another column, everyone's wacky ideas.
Yeah, I envision the Trello in a similar manner, and that it's like, how about let's do this exercise pretty rapid here. What would have belonged on the Trello for Heli Wars? Guns,
weapons,
bases,
helicopters.
So I think that bases should be split out into 2 based on what we saw yesterday, where like there were 3 people working on yellow base and no one working on green base. I think that like unless we just wanted to copy one and clone it and recolor it, but like yeah, those seem like 2 separate like stories.
I think one of the issues that came with that base problem was the fact that the map terrain was already pretty much considered complete by the time that base was done. So like they were trying to copy it over, and they're like, there's just not enough room, there's all this, and this. And it's like, okay, well, green base, get fucked. And that was what happened.
I love it.
I still loved green base.
It was good stuff. I think
I love it
everybody
equally,
did a phenomenal job.
That is what happened.
So I think
Always
that we can
root for
make
the
good ground with this Trello, and I don't think that it can damage the experience beyond repair. So I think we'll be good doing that this upcoming weekend with a 15.
And I don't think we have to be afraid, because when we're making it, we can just bring that opinion into it.
If it sucks, it sucks.
Yeah.
See you later. Yeah.
I think the important thing is that we have a pre-planning phase, whether or not it will look like what it looks like next week, every week, or I don't know. So like Trello might be a wash, but sitting down and just talking about it might still be important.
That's super true, and it gives us an opportunity, like Andrea said, to maybe configure the breakout rooms to more specific things that could be great, instead of having to jump in the 30-person voice call and say, Andrew, meet me in breakout B. Andrew, breakout B, until he listens to me. Okay, let's address a new topic.
Andrew did have something he wanted to say about Trello.
You got
Yes,
something?
I am.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just a little hesitant about Trello. I generally don't find it too useful for my projects. Like many times I've spun up a Trello and then just abandoned it. To me, like the thing that I really, really want to try is like we all start in one big call. We split up into breakout rooms. 15 minutes in, we all check in on each other, go back to the call, and then like back and forth like that. That's to me like what would be the most valuable tool for us to try. But I'm not against the Trello. I'm happy to try it out.
That's interesting. Quarterly
I
pulses.
think that would be a PM sort of deal. If we had a project
Yeah.
manager / producer sort of deal, they would go in through the channels and be like, "Hey, what's up?
That's
Where we
true.
at here?" And then go relay that information because that would be that role.
That would be.
Oh,
that
that's
would be-
actually a really good idea. Is if the builders and the scripters by default, or maybe different categories, but by default, there are like 3 or 4 different rooms, and there is a PM who's popping in and answering questions. Oh.
Did you? What's the next topic, Jackson? Because I have another thought.
The next topic is
unrelated shot I wanted to share.
duration.
Oh, okay. Well, can we save that for later? Because I have one more thing specifically about this
Yes,
last
definitely.
week.
Thank you.
I felt like there was very little attention to the actual game. Like a whole lot of effort felt like this last weekend or yesterday, and it was fun and it was fine. But a whole lot of effort made it feel like it was more of a map jam than it was a game jam. Because like it was like me, a little bit of Alex, and whoever was running around with chickens with their heads cut off about the helicopters that were actually making a game. And obviously you need a map to have a game, but like there was also a lot of effort going into the map and then ostensibly a tiny amount in the actual game. And I think this might kind of loop into what Luke was talking about earlier. Like we didn't really focus on making it a fun or balanced experience. I think I'm kind of in that same vibe with the thought I'm currently sharing.
If we look at
this is
Fish
definitely
from
something
last
that can be. This is definitely something that might be. Sorry, what did you say, Ashley?
If we look at Fish from last weekend, it had that same exact same problem. We only had Joe as a programmer on that team, and the rest of us were artists.
Yeah.
So we had one person doing the gameplay elements. The rest of us were making pretty.
Yeah, and I hate to
super fast.
And I don't.
Also, David, if we had working helicopters like 10 minutes in rather than 55 minutes in, I'm sure there would have been a lot more focus on the gameplay.
Yeah, hopefully next time, no more burning pizzas delaying the day of sex Dan.
Did you put the smoke alarms back, by the way?
Yes,
I did.
But okay, yes. So yeah. So I like, and I don't know that there's a clear solution to this. Obviously, pre-planning will help, I think. But what I really want to avoid, but something that seems like it could be a very easily encountered consequence of this kind of thinking, is shafting multi-role people whose roles include programmer into programmer every time. And like I'm fine being a programmer every time because that's the only thing I'm good at. But
People
like
make
for
the
someone
choices
like
where they go.
for someone like Josh or Anne or if Nora ever joins us, people who have the broad skill set, because programmers are in short supply, we don't want to shaft them with programmer every time just because they're a programmer if they want to try something else. But like I don't know how to solve that problem. I just know it's there and open for discussion.
That problem
Another
only really arises once you like start assigning roles. Overall, it's like people just jump into roles on their own if they feel comfortable with it. Is kind of what it seemed like. But and if you do feel free to correct me on that. But like that's just kind of how it felt across both game jams I've been a part of. It was just I'm gonna jump into sound designer this time because everything else I normally do is done.
Yeah, I think the role concept is a little less strict here, and that's why I'm hopeful about the pre-production, which is really just like task brainstorming. Because if you have some nice programming deets, but you don't really want to flex them today. But you see, like, I'm out of stuff to do. What's on the Trello? Hey, somebody needs, this or that. Yeah. And you can bop in there and chop it off real quick.
I guess it's just like...
It's a good thought.
I guess it's just like, I have one other skill maybe. Like, I'm okay at making some low poly models that are vertex painted. And if I had decided to do that to make, like, 2 or 3 gun models over the course of the jam, the game basically just wouldn't have happened, right?
We would have had... weren't a problem.
Or, like we would have...
37
everything,
guns.
Yeah. So
I think another potential solution to that is having a game with an extremely simple core mechanic, and then like everything else is building. Like,
I
I don't know how. Like, I don't know if it would be as fun or anything, but I think that's like, yeah, another.
You're right. That would solve the problem, but I would hate participating in a game jam like that.
That's fair.
What?
Yeah, so, like,
can you
I
give
have
me an
to
example of what this
I have-
game jam would look like and why it would stink?
Like if we
Well,
just
I
made
think Fish is pretty simple core mechanic with a lot of building, but I don't think that based on the feedback from people of that team, I don't think that's necessarily like. I think that was more viewed as like a downfall of the game, and not like it's like a really simple mechanic, really really beautiful map, great. But like I think that could be done well. I don't know
The main
if I have.
downfall was like we intended for the game jam, that Fish game was just supposed to be like me and Joe and maybe one other person. We didn't expect like all of the artists to join us. So it was kind of a thing of like we planned a very small scope that 2 people could do in an hour or so, and then other people were like, I want in on that, and they're like, okay, cool. And then 20 minutes later we had our map, and I was like, oh, cool, let's make it pretty again. It was just iteration on top of that. But no,
Like secret Blubhouse, I guess, seems like a prompt where it could potentially be very little Blubhouse scripting and like a lot of building it, like tiny little things, I guess, versus like a really big core thing that is necessary for the game to succeed. But
I want to do Secret Blubhouse next.
So
same.
I think that's like conducive to these things, but I also would really try. I would also really like to, and this might just be me, but I'd really like to push the envelope of what this kind of jam can produce.
I agree.
I
think we need to develop our mastery a little bit more.
Yeah.
Over the
like
logistics.
going for such an easy solution. Yeah, it works and it's fun. But I'd also I'd even be okay with doing it on occasion. I would just also like to try something hard.
Yeah.
You know, like that's like when I came into the jam yesterday, I thought to myself, ooh, I could make a custom loadout system. And then my immediate next thought was, that's such a fucking bad idea. I only have an hour. And then I said, no, I'm gonna do it anyways. And that was fun. You know, it was fun to try something hard that I shouldn't have been able to pull off in that amount of time. And then I did. And I would love for all of us to have that feeling, even if it ends up fizzling because there's no content for the system.
Alex, bring it on, buddy.
Yeah, I echo throughout this entire thing what I think David's been alluding to is that there definitely is a spectrum of like people that want to create stuff from scratch. Like I would love to challenge myself and create like a gun in an hour, you know, but I'd only have one of them and there's like a million free models I could just pull from and they'd be amazing and like people wouldn't know the difference, but it is challenging to me. And I certainly have fun like creating things from scratch and like challenging myself. So I don't know where that lays. And I think, Jackson, you mentioned maybe some type of team that wants to challenge themselves. I don't know if that was what Adrian was going to do, and then other teams where it's just like throwing things together. And I think also planning beforehand can help because then you can figure out like, okay, a core part of this game is having guns. So maybe we should have like a bunch of free model guns, but then like coordinate them together nicely. And that can be like the custom code part of that game. But I think, yeah, definitely planning. And then also maybe if teams in the future might want to reflect people's desire to create from scratch versus throw things together.
Yeah.
I'm very down for like scratch slamming.
Yeah.
From scratch, no free models, no previous assets, just go at it.
Yeah.
But those gotta be longer jams to be able to have any actual reasonable product.
Which brings us into the next question.
Yeah, and we'll hit that real quick. Let me get a pulse though. Who wants to do a non-free model jam? Because I feel like a lot of people have said that today or alluded to it.
I'm down for scratch
I think okay, so a lot of people, like, the original vision was, the fun of this is that it's going to be insane free models, blam, 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 blam. And then we do 5 of them and we're like, okay, you know, we understand what that's like. Now let's push the envelope. I like that expression. I think this is a good
What
point.
I don't want is to do the same thing every time. Like, I think to do another free metal jam in the future where we're like just wanting to do something more casual would be fine. But I'd also really like to try one where we, you know, hit it hard.
Yeah, I think that you can do that, but that doesn't work very well if you select a prompt and start planning 15 minutes before you jam. Like these teams, I see them organizing multiple days in advance, and the mold has not been that so far, but that's just because no one has really decided to do it. Like, it's completely open to anybody on Wednesday going in and saying, hey, I want to be Team Red and I want to make this. Like, who's in? I need 2 people to script and I need 2 people to build. Here's my task list. Like, we could totally do that. If you want to drive a team, let's bring it on home. But I do want to ping real quick before we wrap up in about 6 minutes is duration. So there are 2 things here. One of them is a rolling, like every few weeks, doing a longer form jam, and the other thread is potentially just increasing the duration of this from, let's say, 1 to 2 hours. I want to tackle the first one first because I think we'll be fine if we just continue with 1 hour and learning there. So the first one is, let's say, quarterly doing a longer form jam, whether it's 8 hours, 16, 12 hours, 24. I just want to get general thoughts on this. Anybody?
I think I would vibe with quarterly 24.
Quarterly 24.
I think that's a nice bite size and it's a good rhythm for it.
But a 24 is like a weekend to me.
Yeah.
Because you end up, you mess up your sleep schedule.
No, just go to sleep
That's
on
exactly
time.
one of the things that I was saying would be a problem with it.
Yeah, what do you think about 16?
16 sounds like a reasonable amount of time.
Wake up to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think 6 or 8.
I would do 8, but 16 I could also do.
12.
I think a 12
How
hour
about
is
12?
like a nice...
Can I argue with 12?
Alright, middle, yeah.
Well, out
I
of
feel like I'm
well,
haggling with a car dealership.
with the interest of sleep schedules in mind, it could always be split. There could be like a dedicated quiet period.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I've done with every game jam I've ever done. Was they have you must stop between midnight and 8 a.m. So like you are guaranteed to at least get a full night's sleep without sacrificing. Those are
I
in
will ban
competition.
everyone from the Discord for that period. And then
Those are in competitions, right? And we're not doing competition. We're just here to have fun. So like, I feel like a quiet hour is total. Like when me and Jam joshed out Eclipsis. When me and Josh jammed out Eclipsis in January of whatever year, we slept and enjoyed ourselves and did other stuff. Yeah, imagine, right? And it wasn't like a super organized thing, but basically we committed most of our waking hours to talking about, thinking about, or working on the game, and it was a lot of fun. But we also, had time to relax. So like when I say longer form jam, I don't necessarily mean go mode for all the duration. I'm just like, let's say we're dedicating our our spare time, so you can still go work out, so you can still go sleep, so you can still like hang out with family or friends. Like let's dedicate our free time to this for this period of time, and then see what kind of cool thing we can come up with after that many hours, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's not a game jam as a singular event. It's here is a temporary hobby for the week,
Yeah.
So
that would be fun to do at least
let's
once.
bring it back. I want to give us a takeaways quick here. It seems like I'm going to send out I'm going to pick a weekend in late March, and we'll say that's when we'll do our first 12-hour long-form jam. I'll tell you guys in the announcements. Also, it sounds like we want to run this pre-planning experiment 15-minute window before the jam begins this weekend for at least Team Green, and anybody else can do your thing. And it seems like those are the two big ones. You like that? And I want to bring again that maybe to provide a little bit more structure, if you're interested in self-organizing something, talk to me, and then we can have a conversation about what information needs to be put in what place so that people know that you are either accepting or not accepting people and what level of casualness or seriousness you want to get at, how much planning wants to take place. I'll just serve as a bit of an accountability rubber duck there to help us put the right information in place for everybody else. And I think that'd be really fun, honestly. Like I would totally welcome anybody who wants to run a project. Like if there's a prompt that hasn't been picked that you just want to go for it, let me know and let's get that conversation started. Other thoughts?
We didn't talk about the 2-hour.
True. We got a couple minutes here. General thoughts on pushing the envelope from 1 to 2 hours?
Let's go.
Yes.
I feel like we could have made a full-fledged game with Helicopter Wars if we had 2 hours. Like we could have monetized it, had progression.
So I see a good mix. There's a good mix of thumbs up and thumbs down there. Josh, you got a strong thumbs down. Tell me about
I've got
yours.
a strong thumbs down.
Yeah, fill me in.
I think there's I think it doesn't make it funner to make it longer.
Make it funner. Luke, you're a sideways. Break it down for me.
Yeah. Like I think I would lean towards trying this pre-planning and see if this alleviates some of the problems that we have.
Yeah, let's
again,
not ABC it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, like two hours isn't bad. Like I'm not really against 2 hours. It's just I personally would lean towards trying 15 minutes first.
Yeah. Well, there's
I-
multiple things. It doesn't make it funner necessarily. Two is if the project wants to be more than an hour, then there's nothing stopping us from just continuing to work. That's fine.
That's my
And
general
three,
pushback as well. Yeah.
At that hour point, I like being able to just like stop and going on with my day if I want. I like this not taking up a lot of time.
And what are you thinking?
I again like variety. It's not something that I would want to do all the time, but I think it's good to try out these ideas and like going longer or whatever.
That's true. I think the long-term
side
vision is a very rotating schedule of types of events that we do. Like maybe there's a 1 hour, and then the next week it's a 2 hour, and then every quarter it's a 12 hour, and then we have this crazy game day that I say every retro that I want to do, which is telephone development.
I'm in.
10 minutes on one game, and then pass your place file to the team to your left, and then they spend 10 minutes on that game, and then pass.
That would be
and then pass.
so fucking lit. Oh my god.
I'll put it on the calendar. I'll put that, and I'll put a long form on the calendar, and I'll let you guys know. So we're at 2 o'clock. It's been an hour. Is there any quick closing thoughts before we
For
disband?
that round robin, would it be still 1 hour?
I don't know. I'll have to do some brainstorming.
It would have to be number of participants times the duration that you're gonna do it.
And how many
You just have
iterations
multiple
each
per
team
cycle.
gets?
I think I've changed my mind to Luke. I think keep it 1 hour with the 15-minute pre-planning. Let's see what effect that has,
Totally.
and then
Yeah.
maybe we'll decide afterwards that what we really wanted that second hour for was what the 15 minutes provided us.
Totally.
I had energy to go for another hour. I feel like I was still, full energy, but that might just because I wasted so much time. So
And the client crashes were unfortunate barrier. Yeah. So, guys, thank you so much. This was such a productive conversation. Like there was very little friction, I think, in this conversation, like communication wise. Even though there are how many of us? 12. So excellent. Thank you guys so much for being so diplomatic and thoughtful. And I'm super excited to run these experiments next weekend and see what kind of sweet stuff we can come up with. So thanks, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful Sunday and kick ass this week. And I'll see you hopefully on Saturday.
Bye.
Later, y'all.
Peace and love, everybody.
bye. Thanks, Jackson.